career in libraries beyond with business information literacy. And I'm going to move one more bar here. Okay, I think I've all my bars moved. All right. So yes, I am Morgan Ritchie-Baum. So you might have heard from me earlier today. Devin and Dawn were kind enough to invite me to speak on a panel earlier today in this session. But if you weren't there, I am the business and social science, I had to think about that for a second. I'm the business and social science librarian at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Prior to joining the library faculty here at Wake Forest in September of 21, I was a business and nonprofit librarian at the Greensboro Public Library System in Greensboro, North Carolina. So a lot of what I'll be speaking about today will be taking examples from both of my lives as a public librarian and as an academic librarian. So the series of presentations today have very much been focused on how we as information professionals can embrace informal leadership roles in an effort really to enrich both our professional and I would argue our personal growth. So it's like I said earlier, it's a total honor to be asked to share my perspective on this topic, as librarianship is a second career path for me, and not one I initially ever considered as being so transformative and impactful in terms of opportunities for personal and professional growth. So to that end, I will be offering up my perspective on how my work and development as a business librarian specifically has provided me an opportunity to explore and advocate for the power of libraries through the lens of economic empowerment. And along the way, it's helped me learn how to advocate for and believe in my own abilities as an information expert and community resource. By the end of this presentation, I hope that you'll come away not only feeling empowered in your own unique identity as an information professional, but also with greater confidence and really some strategies for entering into and existing in spaces that are not traditionally thought of as for librarians and information professionals. And then at the end of it, if I can convince any of you to consider exploring business librarianship as a possible career path or a new career path, bonus. Along with my job here at Wake Forest, I am the outgoing chair of the NCLA Business Librarians section, Blink. So if you have any questions about Blink, I'm your gal to ask for at least a month and some change. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I wanted to start out with this quote that is attributed to the 20th century American painter, Georgia O'Keeffe. I've been absolutely terrified every moment of my life, and I've never let it keep me from doing a single thing I wanted to do. It actually lives, get my direction here, it's right here. It actually lives on the wall behind me. Here's a close-up picture of it. And it's something I can always see, right, when I'm in a Zoom meeting or giving a virtual presentation. It's also always just a chair spin around whenever I'm in need of reminding that I can do hard things. And while I am not, nor would I ever advocate for pushing oneself to exhaustion to the point of burnout, and let's be honest, we're in a service-based profession, so that can sometimes be a really hard line to walk. I do think sometimes we need reminded, I certainly do, that we are capable of doing hard and scary things, and that mindset can really be a game changer. Because for me, embracing business librarianship was a really hard thing to do. If you were at the panel presentation earlier, I mentioned, you know, when I graduated with my MLIS, I had absolutely no intention of becoming a business librarian. In my mind, I got into librarianship to fight the man, not to become the man. So providing research services that furthered what in my mind were going to be corporate and capitalist interests were really about as far on my list of career goals as they could possibly be. But a funny thing does happen when you've just graduated with a master's degree in a state like ours that is totally saturated with qualified librarians in a capitalist society, right? Where we we're always thinking about, how can we support with money, right? Our families, our dreams, our jobs, our goals. So when it became clear that my best chance at getting a job in libraries in my particular community, so not moving out of the state, was applying to be a business librarian at my local public library. I kind of held my nose and applied. I interviewed, and I think most shocking to anybody, it was to me that I actually got the job. So luckily, though, I quickly discovered that instead of serving our corporate overlords, I was serving people like single moms looking for a better future for their families and a better work-life balance. I was working with newly arrived refugees seeking their own version of the American dream. I was working with student entrepreneurs from North Carolina A&T who have this like passion for changing the world through better and fairer business practices. I was also working with nonprofit organizations looking to support our community in new and exciting ways. So I was very happy uh, that I had some misguided, right, socio-political qualms about the job that actually, they weren't necessarily there. So once I got over that, right, the biggest hurdle I had to actually overcome to embracing this journey I'm on right now as a business librarian was to overcome myself. I had what I termed the expert problem. You could also think of this buzzword alert as imposter syndrome, um, because I'm not a business expert, right? I don't have a degree in business. So how could I be a business librarian? How could anyone listen or want to listen to what I had to say about business research or resources? But as early as my initial interview, I got the sense that there was a lot more to being a business librarian than having business expertise. Sure, would having knowledge about business resources be a plus, or excuse me, business, the inner workings of, what you learn as an MBA, et cetera, would that be a plus? Sure, yeah. But honestly, my first key that I might be okay were in the questions I was getting at my interview. The questions I were getting were asking about my experience and how I understand connecting with and serving a community through meeting their information needs. They were not asking me about the inner workings of a profit and loss report. So it really began to dawn on me that you do not have to have a background in business to be a business librarian. And at the end of the day, we are all information experts. And that is the only thing we really have to claim to be experts at. We are experts at connecting folks to information. And even if we can't get them the exact information that they need, we can usually connect them with the folks or the institutions, really get them to the next step in their information journey, right? And I really do see this as a powerfully undervalued leadership skill that most of us as librarians possess. And we don't do a good enough job at really singing it from the rooftops, right? Our resourcefulness and ability to think critically about how information is produced, shared, and consumed is pretty unique among career paths. I see that more and more every day as I work with my business students here at Wake Forest. This is a skill employers want, and this is a skill that we have a lot of. All right. So once I got over this expert problem, I began to think about what other superpowers, quote unquote, I possess. And one I quickly acknowledged was this ability to say, I don't know, but let me see what I can find. And when you kind of get into this realm of really niche information interests like business librarianship, right? You might see this also in genealogy, STEM librarianship, where we're dealing with very kind of niche information interests. You're going to get a lot of practice saying this, right? This, I don't know, but let me see what I can do. And really becoming proficient in business information is an on the job experience. I think this is a pretty universal experience, right? We really learn best learning on the job because we're getting the questions, right, from our patrons, from our community, and we start to get a sense of what our communities, what their information interests are. So as I began to think about this more deeply, right, the power of this saying, I don't know, I really began to recognize that there is so much care and power embodied in that one statement. I don't know, but let me see what I can find out. You are saying in one fell swoop, I hear you, I understand you, I empathize with you, you are not alone, and I'm going to help you to the best of my ability. And especially when we're dealing with business, ego drives business. It's alive and well, because a lot of times people's livelihoods, right, are tied up with some of these information questions they're asking. So when they realize, and when you realize, right, you can kind of dominate your own ego and say, hey, you know what, this is a hard question, so let's figure this out together. It really does begin to open up doors, right? So, especially when you actually find something that the patron is looking for, maybe exactly what they need, or maybe it's just, again, getting them connected with that next organization that's going to help them. This confidence really begins to blossom within yourself, and you think to yourself, wow, I'm actually doing this. And you get excited about what could potentially be next for you in terms of your career. So I want to invite us all now to just brainstorm with me really briefly and think, what is your professional superpower? I think Devin's going to drop the link to the poll everywhere in the chat. And you should just be able to hop in there and just what is a professional superpower you don't think gets celebrated enough about what you do? And if anybody has a hard time getting access to this, please let me know. There's always a tech snafu. Yay, there we go. Yes, creativity, programs, events. Yes. What else? Empathy. Yes. I'm not sure if these went together, but getting folks talking, I'm putting that one together in here because I think that is so important, right? Creating community in our space. And these are hard things sometimes to put on our CVs or when we're meeting with our supervisors, right? To talk about. It maybe doesn't necessarily feel like appropriate or like the thing we should be talking to them about, in our yearly, quarterly, whatever reviews. Listening, that's such a big yes, but these are the skills that keep people coming back. These are the skills, the superpowers, right? That create advocates for our services in our communities. I love this. I mean, librarians are super. I love my profession, right? So I am totally 100% biased when it comes to thinking about and talking about our profession. But I just think this is so powerful to think about. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and head on over to the next slide, but I think I'll like take a picture of this and like put it on my wall somewhere because I think, yes, these are some of our great professional superpowers. All right, so the second hurdle I really encountered in my business librarianship journey was the language of business itself. Nothing will kill your confidence more than when you walk into a room of business people, right? And yes, think of a stereotypical like business meeting, right? Suit, tie, all the rest. You introduce yourself as a librarian, and they just kind of look at you with that somewhat vacant, oh, that's nice, that's sweet, but why are you talking to me? Kind of stare, smile, and nod, right? Code switching, which as a refresher, this is a linguistic term describing the experience of switching back and forth between languages and dialects in a single conversation. And it is most often experienced by members of a minority group when switching between interactions within their quote unquote subculture and interactions within a quote unquote dominant culture. But it exists in library land, right? So as a discipline, there is a very unique language, right, that comes with librarianship. Just the term librarian is loaded with a lot of connotations and meanings depending on the cultural context. I experienced this as a public librarian. I experienced this as an academic librarian. You walk into an MBA class, you say, hi, I'm here today to talk to you about library resources. And they're like, why are you in this class? What can I possibly learn from a librarian? But especially as a public librarian, I found it increasingly difficult to advocate for the library's business resources and services, and by proxy myself, because it's right there in my title, business and nonprofit librarian, when I was speaking with patrons, entrepreneurs, community leaders. Because again, that moment I identified myself as a librarian, it was like this mental gate, right, would seemingly come down in the mind of the person across from me. Because after all, right, what good are children's books, romance novels, arts and crafts programs when it comes to starting and running a business or supporting economic development in a community? And surprise, surprise, as it turns out, all of the above and more are actually great for starting and running a business and supporting economic development in a community. But it was my inability or really obliviousness at kind of couching our services and resources in a language that would really resonate with these folks who had business on the brain. It was really preventing me from connecting that information need with a source of information. This was also really revelatory, this idea of code switching to me in terms of advocating for both what I felt. Remember, I am an expert, right? What I felt our patrons needed to meet their business information needs and what I needed, right, in terms of my professional development in order to serve our patrons to the best of my abilities and really grow my own skills within this profession. So it was really amazing the doors that began to open when I started referring to myself as a business information or business research specialist, as opposed to just a librarian. And once those doors were open, mentally and physically, I could begin to talk about how, this NC Live resource could really generate valuable market research for your startup. Or, hey, you know what? If you wanted to do a children's story time with us with a focus on financial literacy, that could really not only benefit our patrons, right? But it's going to get the good word out about what's going on at your local credit union or this nonprofit, right, that has community financial education as a mission. Now, personally, I do think it's kind of dumb that I had to think so hard about what I called myself and how I discuss the work that I do. But the truth of the matter is that we exist in a system that judges our worthiness really based on our job description, especially, and that's hard, right, when people have preconceived notions about your job description. But I also believe that part of breaking down these systems that really no longer serve us is tearing them down from the inside out. I love surprising people, right? So if switching up how I describe what I do opens doors, both in terms of being able to connect library resources with my community and to get the resources I need to be more fulfilled personally, professionally, that is something I am 100% willing to do. So I want to invite us once again. So think about what you do and talk to me about what you do, but don't use library lingo, right? So probably your job title won't cut it. So if you had to tell somebody what you do without using library lingo, how would you describe what it is that you do? I will accept book wizard. I always liked that one. I used to be a bookseller, so I always liked the title book wizard, but I'm sure there's more eloquent and interesting ways we can describe what we do. Yes, so simple, right? I'm just here to talk to you about your technology. I'm here to help you how to learn. I'm a wrangler, yes, a book wrangler. I like that. An information wrangler, even. Mm, I did chaos engineer as well. A staff manager. I see your response there in the chat. Yeah, I'm manage, right? We can manage so much. And in this case, I manage our staff. Do education and classes. Yes. An information educator, right? That is so tantalizing, right? Because what does that mean, right? And that opens up doors. That starts to open up doors where you can really dig into it. Creative problem solver, an information guide and manager, that it would look beautiful, I think, on a resume or a CV. I wear many hats, yes. Oh, I love that. We provide a safe place for adults with IDD to be. Yes. Because the library, again, I think it's amazing how much it's still in the minds of students, our communities. The library is just a place with books, right? And that's where the story stops. Yes, the library has books, and that's still very much key to our identity, but we do so much more. A book explorer. I love it. Well, I invite you, as this starts to slow down a little bit here, I again invite you to really start to think about what you do in terms other than just what your job description is. Begin to think about who your community is, right? And the language that is used in your community, and how you can connect what it is you do with that language. All right. So what? So why should you become a business librarian, or more specifically, think more strategically about your unique skill set as an information specialist? In my mind, I think it's because it can pay huge dividends in terms of who we serve, what we serve, and how we serve it. Right. So, in most cases, these are not going to be earth shattering, mountain moving revelations or experiences, but they do make a difference. Small things can make a huge change, right? So, my favorite example of what I mean by this comes from my experience being a public business librarian during the darkest days of the pandemic, when, for the most part, our institutions were not open to the public and we were all trying to figure out not only how to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy, but again, we are, a people-focused, service-based profession. How do we best serve our communities as libraries and librarians? So I will say by this point, by the time the pandemic had really kind of hit in March, and we were all, like, what do we do? I had begun to make relationships with business leaders in our community, and I had also developed some internal and external relationships with folks who were my advocates for the library. Right, I had shown them what the library was capable of in terms of business and economic development, and they in turn shared that good word, if you will. And it was important to create these advocates, right? Because these were the people who were also at the table when it came to organizing and thinking about, providing community pandemic services and support. So these people included my library director, um, folks on the city manager's team. Greensboro Public Library is a municipal library system as opposed to a county library system, and other folks in city government. And it just so happened that my library director was at the table when it was being discussed that they kind of needed like a business information czar almost, right? Like they were going to create this whole committee to put together resources for businesses and how they can possibly survive during the pandemic. And my library director, because at that point she knew what I was capable of, she said, "Hold on, I don't think we actually need to create a whole committee for this. I think the library can be really instrumental and really helpful here." And I'm happy to say we were. So, at the request of our library director, I began to compile this daily updated list of information on pandemic relief programs and grant support for small businesses and nonprofits. I would send this list out daily in an email. And because the people who initially started receiving this list were my advocates, right? And they were business leaders I had had the opportunity to work with. They knew who I was and they knew what I was capable of providing. So they actually opened up that email. And what started as a list of a few key institutions and individuals actually soon grew to a distribution list of over 130 different organizations and individuals, which I almost wish I hadn't known because it kind of freaked me out, right? But they saw that this list didn't come from some organization, external organization. This came from their public library, right? And was I doing anything more than creating a list of resources, something we as librarians do in some shape or form, probably weekly? Arguably, no, right? But because I had been advocating for my expertise, doing what I do best, and asking for what I needed to perform at this high level. So in this case, I needed the time to do it. I needed a good laptop in order to do this. I think I eventually even got like a second monitor when we got back into the office, right, to try and keep all these resources compiled. Um, I was really able to be directly connected to a need I was uniquely qualified to fill, and in turn, not only help a bunch of folks out, but also, again, begin to equate in our community's mind that the library um, is for business support and for economic development. And Urban Libraries Council was awesome enough to write a short story about this. So it's something I'm really proud of. And this experience was hugely validating as well. And listen, if you don't need external validation, I am super glad for you. But especially as a newer librarian in a pretty scary time, just knowing I was helping in really some small way was such a confidence boost. It really impressed upon me that power of advocacy. So this experience, along with others, ultimately led me to believe that I could make the very scary leap from public to academic libraries. It helped me believe that I had something to contribute to our professional community, and it helped me believe that I could maybe continue um, offering something to our professional community as the chair of NCLA's business librarian section. Really, again, hoping to create pathways and opportunities to validate and grow the very special skills our members possess, not just as business librarians, but as information professionals of all stripes. So when Devin reaches out to me and asks, hey, would you give a presentation on how business librarianship helped your career? 100% yes, because I do see it as a way of giving back. Do I think this is perfect? Do I think I'm a perfect librarian? Absolutely no. But do I think I've had some unique experiences and come to some personal revelations that I think other people experience? 100%. And if I can give you the confidence in yourself and in your abilities as an information expert to take that next step that you think you need to grow your career or just grow personally, I'm 100% here for it. So last poll, I just would love to know, do your own cost benefit analysis. There's some business lingo for you, right? What is one thing that you can begin doing now that you will think will benefit yourself professionally in the long run? It could be, asking for, breaching the topic with your director, right? Hey, can I get some money to go to NCLA? Or can I at least get some time off to go to NCLA? It could be asking for a second computer monitor so you can do some more detailed work. But tell me, what is one thing you think you can begin doing right now that's going to benefit yourself professionally in the long run? Yeah, I think one small thing you've all done is come to this great series of workshops put on by NC Live. Join events, getting face to face. I think I do a lot of virtual stuff and I think it's really valuable, but I also think, doing that face to face networking can be so powerful. Networking, that's a huge word, yes. I think I said this earlier today during the panel discussion, but there's this great I think it's on Ask a Manager blog, like networking is not a dirty word. And it's so true. And it's something, we're a people profession. And I think part of being a people profession is connecting with people who do this as a profession and learning from them. And a lot of the words I'm seeing in this word cloud coming up are words talking about connecting in different ways, connecting with our community as librarians, but also connecting with each other. And I think that is a really small thing that can have such huge impacts. All right, I'm gonna hop on over to my last slide here. All right, so I just want to wrap it up and thank you for your attention for these past 30 minutes. So the three things I hope you take away from this, number one, is to own and celebrate your expertise. I needed to own my expertise to really gain that necessary confidence to advocate for what I needed to do my job and to serve my community to the best of my ability. I think you should also, when you think about celebrating what you are capable of, think about how you celebrate it and the language that you use to celebrate it. You might need to celebrate what you do in a lot of different languages. So think strategically about how you describe what you do and what you're capable of doing, and don't allow yourself to be pigeonholed by someone else's belief, right? And who you are and what you do. Hack those systems that are not serving you. And then finally, capitalize on the positives and find a way to give back. So I think you should celebrate your accomplishments and find ways to put them to use for someone or something else. So, did you get that scholarship to go to a conference? Awesome. I think you should put that on your CV. I think you should talk about it in interviews and put it on your resume, bring it up when salary negotiations come up. But you should also plan on going to that conference and sharing what you learned at that conference with your colleagues and putting that to work in your community. I think anytime we can transform something awesome that's happened to us to help somebody else, it just creates really positive momentum. At least that's been my experience. All right, so that's all I have. I am more than happy to answer any questions, comments, concerns, etc. And that's also my email address on the screen. And I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Morgan. I think it's a really good point to sort of share those accomplishments and not be afraid of it, because you just don't know what will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I think we are a very humbled profession. At least that, again, has been my experience. And I think we do a lot of really awesome things that challenge a lot of these preconceived notions about what we do in our profession. Nobody, again, when you say you're a business librarian, right? Like, nobody necessarily, like, unless they've met a business librarian, like, nobody really understands like what it is that you do, right? And again, it's just finding ways to celebrate what it is that we do.
Yeah. And I think one of the really nice things is like those professional sections and committees that can make you feel more empowered to build a skill set. Like when I started this position, Blink was the first NCLA section to immediately be like, hey, we're having a workshop. Do you want to come? Welcome me into the fold. And it did take some of that pressure off of it, because I, like you, felt like, I don't know anything about this. Is this
Mhm.
commerce? Am I getting involved in something that I don't believe in? And
Right.
it's actually the opposite. Like I find, as you said, with business librarianship, you're helping people um, who are seeking you out, who want this, who aren't the big CEO
Right. Right.
necessarily.
Right. And obviously the focus of this talk has been on business librarianship, but I think there are so many different things we do in our specialty areas. And even if,
Mhm.
our title is literally just like librarian one or librarian two, I think we all bring a really unique perspective to that, that can surprise people and turn them into advocates for the library itself. And if you're having a hard time kind of thinking about what you do in that sense, professional organizations can be a great sounding board for kind of awakening within yourself, like what is possible. I said earlier, I don't know if she's still on the presentation, but Angel Truesdale was a public business librarian who made that switch to academic librarianship, and that was just like, I never even thought that was really possible. I thought that was like an insurmountable jump to make once I kind of got interested in that as a professional career growth. And she showed me how it was done, right? And I was able to kind of follow her lead. So I don't think that would have been possible if I hadn't been connected to a professional organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a good example of how it's never too late to make that switch, even if you go into that first job after library school, or if you're kind of consistently in this path of instruction librarianship and you hate it, find out what other
Yes.
parts of librarianship you do like, because
Yes.
I was actually having a conversation with another librarian yesterday who started out as a teaching librarian and was talking to me and was like, Devin, I don't understand how you do this all the time. I'm like, I love it. But they found their niche with e-resources, and more power to you. Like that's, I think, something that is so nice about our profession, is the way that you can kind of like cycle out of different uh areas of it and build different skill sets. Like it's not just
Yes.
one static thing.
And I will say too, as it relates to business librarianship, there are so many positions available. anecdotally, I was just in a conversation with the ALA brass committee that I'm a member of. Anecdotally, there are so many business librarian positions available. We're talking about actually like maybe doing a study like to track that.
Mhm.
And because it's an in-demand skill, it's an in-demand section of our profession. And I think so many librarians kind of shy away from it because of that title. It's just not something, as Angel put this in the chat. We just don't even consider it because we just don't think it's for us, right? And I truly believe we all have the skills to do it. We just kind of have to find our angle into it, your personal angle into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's always postings. Like I see things come in from the grad school listservs and whatnot, like always, just
Yeah, and
librarianship.
while I would never want somebody to leave this wonderful profession, there's a lot of transferable skills here, right?
Mhm.
If you do decide you want to leave librarianship, and I know folks who have taken their librarianship skills and they go on to work for large nonprofits, large corporations, the government. We have such transferable in-demand skills that we just need to celebrate.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're going to wrap up a little bit early, so enjoy the rest of your Friday and the afternoon. Morgan, can't thank you enough for coming, not
Thank
only for
you.
one session, but two today.
Oh, thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, y'all.
Have a good weekend. Great. And I'll send up the follow-up email this afternoon with the recording. So take care, y'all.